Madam President,
The senator from Missouri.
the ability to secure your border, to follow my good friend from Ohio, the ability to secure your border is actually one of the fundamental responsibilities of a legitimate government. Even former President Obama within the last few months has looked at what was happening at the border, and I believe the word he used was unsustainable. We cannot continue to let this happen. It's a border crisis, whether the administration is willing to call it a border crisis or not. Drugs coming across, I know my friend from Tennessee is going to talk about that, as the senator from Ohio did. More than 2 million people were apprehended trying to cross the border last year. Of that number, more than 171,000 were unaccompanied children. The year before had been 37,000, 2020. It was 37,000 people. Should have been a warning sign. 37,000 children is bad enough, let alone 171,000, almost 4 times the number that came the year before. We need to ask ourselves, what are we doing to encourage that happening? Why would parents let their children come, send their children, or why would children come on their own to the border at the numbers of 171,000? Now, obviously, we don't know exactly how many people actually entered the country illegally. So if 2 million people were apprehended entering the country, some of them may have been making repeat efforts to come into the country, but there's no real evidence that very many people get sent back. But let's assume some do. So some of the apprehended people may have been multiple offenders, if you will, of trying to violate our law by coming in. I think it's more reasonable to believe that more people weren't apprehended than were apprehended multiple times. So we have a huge problem here. The policies that have already been discussed, why would the number, just over 2,035,000 last year, why would that number be 272% greater than the year before? Things happening in the countries they come from aren't different substantially than they were the year before. Weather's not in crisis in any way different than it was the year before. So let's look at day one of the Biden administration, where one of the first decisions is we're going to stop building the barrier that's in process of being built. Not we're going to debate whether we should do more of it or not, but we're going to stop building the barrier that Congress has appropriated the money for, that the equipment has been bought for, that the necessary metal and fencing and other things have been bought for, and they're delivered. After we get that up, let's decide if we need to do more. I've never been of the view that every inch of the border needs to have a barrier, but I've always been of the view that a barrier or a fence or a wall, whatever you want to call it, has to be helpful, particularly if it has the technology that was going into this fence. So, just watching that great investment that the American people made set there and not completed is a problem. Some wall and fence had been torn down already, so the new wall and fence could be put back up. We have areas that don't have the kind of fence they had 5 years ago or 10 years ago or under the Clinton administration, because we decided, no, we're just going to stop doing what the Congress has already provided money and the authority to do. And then the Remain in Mexico policy, which frankly, I thought was one of the most amazing things that our government got the government of Mexico to agree to. It was a major step on their part to help us not only secure our border, but discourage people from needlessly coming all the way through Mexico. Most of our immigrants are not Mexican immigrants anymore. They're Central American immigrants. They're the immigrants that others have talked about today from all over the world, but they come through Mexico, and Mexico doesn't like that either. So why would Remain in Mexico work? Remain in Mexico was working because people, when they see that they're not going to be let loose in the United States or delivered somewhere in the United States and told to come back 90 days or 5 years later, when they see that's not going to happen, and they talk to anybody who understands the law, 9 out of 10 of them know that they have no chance for an asylum claim, and they're in Mexico. It's not that they have no chance for an asylum claim and they have arrived and been taken somewhere in the United States and told to return at a later date. It clearly just did not work. The Remain in Mexico, we could have put more money there. In fact, we put quite a bit of money there, but then walked away from the facilities that were just about to begin to serve the purpose in the way that the American people, the most generous people in the world about people coming to our country, I think the most liberal immigration laws in the world for legal immigration, we could have made an investment so that people could have safely and securely understood that you're not going to be able to advance this asylum claim. Easiest thing in the world to do is show up at the border and say, we're claiming asylum. The United States government sends you somewhere in the United States to wait and come back later for a hearing. Now we see people, single adults, getting on planes in the middle of the night and being flown to other airports and getting off in the middle of the night. I've even heard, surely this can't be really accurate, that you're told to use your arrest papers as your identification to get on the plane. If we come to the point where our border policy is use the arrest papers to get on the plane, so wherever we take you, you are able to then be part of our society until somebody catches you and tells you you can't be part of our society, is a huge problem. The border is out of control. There is clearly a border crisis. I am a major supporter of legal immigration. I'm a major supporter of kids who were brought here by their parents illegally and have grown up in America and not gotten in trouble. I think they should be able to stay, and we should want them to stay. I am not a supporter of this blatant violation of the law and sending a message to the whole world, here's how you get done what you want to get done, even though it's against the laws of the United States to do what we are clearly helping you do. I yield back.